Have you ever noticed what we do when we have a problem? You know what we do? We slice the problem, we ask questions about it, and from one problem we create many different problems, and life goes on so that we can solve those problems. Let's take an example of money. Let's say you were struggling with this whole question of money, that you need more money. Now, I'm not questioning the reasons why you need more money. It may be to have a better lifestyle, to be buying more things, to be in a bigger house or bigger cars or whatever it is. Now, let's say you're faced with this question or realization in your mind, a thought comes in that I need more money. Now, what do? How do we go about solving that problem? You probably read a book, you probably read some online articles on how to make money, you maybe watch some videos on YouTube to give you some ideas. Or maybe you sit back and if you have a job, you think about that, how do I go at work and how do I increase my income from the work that I'm doing? So maybe it means a better relationship with your boss. Maybe it means finding out a way to get more responsibility at work. Or if you're in a business, maybe it means to find out how to get more customers. If you have to get more customers, maybe you need to come up with a better sales pitch for your product. If you have a better sales pitch for your product, you need people who can go out there and sell that product. So one question leads to these many multiple questions, and we go about addressing the smaller questions. Now, what happens when you address the smaller question? Let's say you go to work and you now have to talk to your boss about getting a pay raise, and he comes up with 5 different things that you need to do in order to get more responsibility. Now, those 5 different things, when you analyze them, those are 5 different problems. And what do we do with those problems? We go and further dissect those problems and get into the similar ways of finding solutions to those problems. And you see in a very short span of time that one problem of how to get more money has gotten divided into 100 other problems that you now have as a result of that one problem, and your life is now fully occupied to be able to solve that problem. Why does this happen? Why couldn't we stay with that one problem? Why have we created 100 different problems to be able to find an answer to one problem? You see, we never even really got to the real problem. What is a problem? A problem in realistic terms is a challenge thrown at you. Right? Now, let's say there could be a physiological problem, and we're not talking about those. You might break your arm, or you might have an accident, you might fall sick, and yes, you need a technical expert for that. You need to go to a doctor and you need to get it fixed. But these kind of problems that we are talking about are more psychological in nature. There is a problem, and we've created 100 different problems out of it. And the reason behind that is we've been trained to do that since very childhood. Right from the time that a child is born, he's faced with problems, isn't it? We as parents, as teachers, as society, give people problems, give these little children problems. Problems of how to walk, how to talk, how to sit, how to eat, how to be well mannered, how to belong to the society, how to learn English, how to learn Hindi, how to learn physics, geography, maths, chemistry, how to find a job, how to find a livelihood. And once you found a livelihood, come to the same problem as to how do you find more money. Our brains are trained to think of problems and then think of solutions, because right from a very early period in our lives, that's the way that that's the way of occupation of the brain. That's the way that we've been trained to exist. That's the way that we've been trained to live, and that becomes the way of the world. You know, the real problem is that we don't get to the real issue. It is not a question of breaking down a problem and trying to do something. That's the way that we've been trained. That's a pattern, that we want a problem and then we want 1,000 things to do, so that there's occupation and the mind, body and heart is fully occupied, and we're constantly in this mad rush of doing something. But what is the real problem? We never get to that. Let's look at this problem of money. We all go about in this mad race of getting more. What is the basic money that you need? Now, I'm not saying that you don't need money. Of course, all of us need money for survival, for food, for shelter. Beyond that, if we are constantly occupied with this problem, what does it really mean? Look into your heart of hearts. What that really means is that this is a problem of greed. It wasn't a problem of how to find more money, but we won't get to that issue. We won't get to the core issue because the mind is trained to go out there and find solutions, because that's our thoughts. Now, what are our thoughts, you may ask? How did this thought of making more money, or if there is another problem, how do these come into the picture? What are our thoughts made of? Thoughts are made up of all our past, all our knowledge, all our traditions, all our society values, our sense of nationalism, our concept of religion, our concept of God, our concept of a higher purpose, the world out there, the world within. All of this has been educated, all of this has been fed into our mind as thoughts, and today we are a prisoner of these thoughts trying to solve these problems. Now, this very thought, this very tradition, this very pattern, this very history has created this problem out there in front of us, and we're using this very tradition and pattern and society to solve the problem. Hello, it won't work. And there is a very simple reason why it won't work. If you were to stick with the same problem as money, tomorrow you have more money. Has the problem gone away? No. The problem will stay because the thought hasn't gone away. The thought, the pattern, the tradition, the prison, that hasn't gone away. We haven't really broken through it, and we're expecting the problem to go away. It will not happen like that. Let's examine a problem that the world deals with today, the problem of violence, right? And how do we deal with violence? We want to create a non-violent society. So let's find out what non-violence is. And when we go into the problem of how to create non-violence, we come up with a whole set of problems as to what is to be done to create a society which is love, compassion, and non-violence. The moment we get to a to-do list, we have lost sight of the problem. The problem was violence. And we're dealing with this problem as if it is external to us out there in the world. The problem is violence. Can we stop, pause for a minute, and look at violence within? What is violence? Violence is not just going and beating around someone. There's violence in anger. There's violence in slamming the door on someone. There's violence in being isolated. There's violence, there's non-verbal violence. There's verbal violence. Can I get in touch with it? Because if I can't, then the problem isn't going away. But we have to. We are compelled to conform to this pattern that the society has taught us. And it is really, really very difficult to break through it because we are using our thoughts to break through it. And the more we use our thoughts to break through it, the more we fall into the trap of this pattern, because these thoughts are the ones that created the problem or that pattern in the first place. Everyone wants a nice, beautiful home to live in, right? And a lot of us fall for this trap of getting a house and mortgage or loan or home loans or whatever it is you call it. And we get thrilled by the idea of having our own home and having a nice, beautiful house of our own which we can live in, and it gives a sense of a fulfillment of belonging, and we go for these home loans because at the time we thought of a problem that I need a house. What should I do? Oh, maybe let's go get a loan. So what do I do? Need to get a loan. I need a certain income documents. I need to get a certain job, and I fulfill this criteria and I get my own house. I go inside that house, and moments later I realize that it hasn't resulted in any better life than there was before. But I am in a trap of a problem now. That's what I really wanted in the first place. The problem is this home loan, because of which I need a job security. Because of job security, I need to compromise 10 other things in my life. You see, a problem doesn't get us anywhere. Or rather, finding a solution to the problem the way that we have been used to doesn't really get us anywhere, because it wasn't really the problem in the first place. What was this problem of getting our own home, of owning a piece of land, of owning a piece of property? Where did you learn it? It was conditioning from the society who told you that this is a good thing to do, this is what success means in life, this is what achievement means in life, and bang, we fell for it. We never analyzed whether it's the right thing, whether it's not the right thing, whether it applies to your situation, whether it doesn't apply to your situation. All we were worried about is how to come across as successful, not how to be successful, how to come across as successful to the society, and we've been caught in a problem because of that for our entire lives. The real problem, if you examine, if you're able to silence this mind, you'll see the real problem of getting that home or getting that home loan wasn't on how to get the amount from the bank. The real problem was that in your heart you were conforming with the pattern of society, that we were conforming to what we've been taught, that we were conforming with the tradition, with the values that have been taught to us, without examining whether it leads to happiness or whether it just leads to a conformist pattern. You can pick up any problem and see the problems that occupy your mind or the problems that you deal with. It could be your health related problems. Let's say you look into the mirror and you see that you're fat. Now, I'm not saying that's not a reality, but what do most people do when they realize there is a problem? We seek an expert of some kind. We go to some dietitians. We go and join some gym, which we never bother to keep up with. We think of all the things that are to be done, rather than looking within and seeing what's the real problem. Is there something wrong in your lifestyle? Is there something wrong that you're putting in your mouth? Because otherwise there cannot be a health issue. But we don't examine the real issue. We don't want to stop the real issue. We want occupation. That's what this brain does. That's what the past thoughts do. That's what this conditioning does. It trains you to get occupation. It doesn't train you to get to the heart of the problem. Have you ever thought about it? What if just for a moment, you're able to stop and not use this word called problem and just look at the situation for what is? Just try it out. Is there a difference? Someone might be in a bad relationship, let's say, right? And they will think of tons of things to be done, but not look at the real problem. They go to a counselor, maybe they start talking to each other, they live in a mess for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, some even longer. There are people I know who do that. because they are trying to address the problem between two people by blaming another person or by blaming their own selves or by blaming this whole society, but they're not looking at the problem as to what's keeping them there. They're scared of insecurity maybe to leave it, they're scared of some money issues maybe to leave it, they're just not confident, you blame the kids, you blame the society, but you've not really got into the real issue, because if you got into the real issue, the problem wouldn't be there. Just imagine this for a moment. You're driving a car, right, and you're going on a highway and you're going all sorts of roads and turning left and turning right and zigzag and here and there, and you suddenly realize that you're on the wrong way, that you don't know where you're going. What will you do? Will you keep driving or will you stop? You will probably stop. You will not at that time think of, oh, let me keep driving till I figure out what's the right way, or let me just keep going another 100 miles and maybe I see something. Will you just stop? And then you would think about what the problem, where you got lost and where you have to go. And that is life. We keep driving this, we are the drivers of this life. And we come across problems, but we mindlessly keep driving. We don't take a break. We don't stop. You know what we do? We come up with a problem, we break it down into 100 problems, and that's occupation, and before you know, life is over, dead and buried and gone. Hello, when will you live? The problem isn't the problem. Even you will look at a problem. What do you need to do? You need to get to the real issue, and the real issue is in here. The real issue isn't out there. But when you look at a problem, just like that car, you need to stop. And when you are able to stop, and by meaning stop, I mean to stop this mind from racing and asking a question as to how to solve it and how not to solve it. Stop. Look at yourself and examine the thing that you have in front of you. Is it a problem? Can you look at it without the word called problem? If you're thinking about money, can you look at greed? If you're thinking about wars, can you look at violence within? If you're talking about health, can you look at peace within? If you're talking about society and traditions and building houses and buying bigger cars, can you look at your conformity within? And when we are able to look at ourselves in that manner, to examine this thing called problem for what it is, not this word called problem, to examine the greed, to examine the unhealthiness, to examine the conformity, to examine our whole sense of being, just for that very word, and look at it without any prejudice and without any condemnation, because the prejudices and condemnations and conclusions are all about an end result. Just look at it for what it is. Spend a moment to look at it, and it's here. It's in the being. When you look at the greed and for what it is doing, for what it is manifesting in your life and in the world, and silently when you observe it, you may just realize that the problem's dissolved because you paid attention to the real thing. When you pay attention to the real thing, just take a moment, stop there. Stop using this word called problem. If it's greed, it's greed. If it's conformity, it's conformity. If it's violence, it's violence. And it's in me, it is me. And when you look at the problem, when you're able to pay your undivided attention and observation to this, you will find out that it's just dissolved. It's just gone. Try it out. Let's see how it goes.